to this podcast. It's another thrilling episode of the Outdoorsman Oath. I'm your host, Tyler, alongside with co-host Eric, and today we have a special guest joining us, none other than Ryan from Grayboe. If you're into tactical and hunting rifles, you're in for a treat. Grayboe specializes in crafting top-notch gun stocks, and Ryan is here to share his expertise with us. So grab your gear, sit back, and get ready for an insightful journey into the world of precision and craftsmanship. This is episode 6 of the Outdoorsman Oath, where the adventure begins. So welcome to the podcast, Ryan. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us about yourself, introducing, and go over what got you into shooting.
Yeah, okay. So really, I guess my first real job was being a Navy SEAL. I mean, I joined when I was right out of high school a little bit. I had a little college, joined the Navy in 2000, trying to become a SEAL. That's what I wanted to do, and went to BUD/S. 9/11 happened while I was in BUD/S, so that was a really interesting time. Made it through, went to my first SEAL team in 2002. Pretty much we're preparing for war ever since, 9/11 happened while I was in BUD/S. So it was a pretty crazy time, but that's my military background. I spent about 7 years in the SEAL teams and got out. My grandfather started a business and really invented the fiberglass stock in somewhere between 1968 and 1973 is when he was working on that. And that kind of started like this family legacy for the McMillans to make fiberglass stocks. So that's kind of how I got in the business after the military, and I've been kind of pursuing that ever since. And worked for and with my dad for a few years between 2007 and 2014, and then started Grayboe in 2014. I've been doing that ever since.
Wow. So are you part of the McMillan family then?
Yeah. So that's my grandfather's Gail McMillan, who invented the fiberglass stock and started McMillan Fiberglass Stocks. To my father, Kelly, took that over sometime in the mid-'80s. And I kind of grew up in my high school days, like working at the shop. And so, yeah, that's my family. I guess it could have been a case possibly that I would have taken that company over, but it just didn't work out. My dad and I just didn't see quite eye to eye. So I ended up starting my own thing, and he ended up selling the business. But yeah, that is my family.
So I've heard about like listening to Jocko's podcast and stuff. How was the SEAL teams for you? Was it pretty intense?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really talk about, like, you can't really describe something like that with words really well. I guess I could say this. I remember, going through BUD/S, you just get like, it just becomes your way of life. Anything you do, I think, just becomes your way of life. It doesn't mean it's fun or enjoyable, but once you do something long enough and you get into a routine, you get more comfortable with it. When I was in, they were doing a History Channel documentary on Class 234. I started with 236, so I was 2 classes behind. So I watched the whole documentary from 2 classes behind, and then they launched that series years later. It was years after they actually that class graduated. I remember watching that History Channel series on Class 234 and thinking to myself right away, like, that's nothing compared to what we went through. And then, I talked to my friends and they watched the same documentary, like, holy cow, that's insane. And so it's just a matter of perspective. But I guess the point being is that, it's hard to really explain what you go through during those times. So hard to put that into words. But I will say that it's definitely the hardest thing I think anybody could ever do. Physically, I think everything comes down to your mental ability. Like, it's your mental ability to push yourself physically, and that's what it comes down to. They push you physically all the time, and that turns out to be a mental aspect that you have to overcome. So anyway, yeah, it was difficult, but it was a great learning experience. I had a great time. I didn't spend 20 years in the teams. I knew that was long term. The military wasn't for me. I wanted to do some other things, but it was the best thing I ever did.
Awesome. Well, that's very commendable, and thank you for giving us insight into that.
Sure.
So I was wondering, I was curious about what your favorite hunting stock was and what your favorite competition stock was that you build. And then also what's the most popular that you sell for each category.
Yeah, so let me start kind of in reverse. Like by far our most popular stock is called the Phoenix. I can't say exactly why. Like everybody has their own idea of what they want out of a rifle stock. And our goal with making rifle stocks is to try to hit certain areas of a market, right? Like even though you make a hunting stock, it doesn't mean it's going to serve all hunters. There could be a number of different configurations that different hunters like, or different scenarios in which, you're going to go hunt. Like you might be hunting an extreme altitude and you want the lightest weight stock you possibly can. You don't care about adjustability. It's all about lightweight. Another hunting stock, you might be where you're maybe shooting from a known still position and you want all the adjustability in the world and you don't care that much about weight. So, and there's all kinds of, possibilities in between. So the Phoenix is kind of our hybrid. It's our kind of what we call long range hunter, but it's really kind of it's got some tactical features to it, but it's by far our biggest seller. I think partly because we've done a really good job launching and promoting that product. I think in business that has a lot to do with how successful your product are, but I also think the Phoenix is a great stock too, and people realize that. My personal favorite tactical stock, I got to be honest, we mostly focus, we have a couple tactical stocks, but we mostly focus right now on hunting, but we do have we have actually 3 tactical stocks, competition stocks coming out this year. We're redoing the Renegade. So if you look on our website, we already have a Renegade. We'll come out with the Renegade 2. That's gonna launch in the second quarter. We'll have another launch in the third quarter and another launch in the fourth quarter. So we're really going to push our tactical competition stocks this year. Really excited about that. We're really happy with what we've got. We've actually got both of those designs nearly done. It takes a little bit of time for us to launch a product because of the process of design, and then we have to make the molds, then we have to make prototypes, then we have to do our marketing, all that stuff. So, but we have 2 tactical competition stocks launching this year, so I'm excited about that. I don't have a favorite of those yet. They all fit a different need. They're great for what they fit. And as far as my favorite hunting stock, again, it's like it depends on what you're after. It depends on what you're hunting and what environment you're in. So if I'm doing a certain type of hunt, like I said before, super high altitude, I'm going to take the lightest weight stock. I'm not going to take that on every hunt. I'll take, a more adjustable stock when I'm hunting and I know I'm going to be in a stationary position and I can just blast or something. So that's the best answer I have for you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So who would you say is your main customer as far as like pre-building guns? How would I word it?
More like there's Savage and the Remington 700 and all the different actions.
So you're talking about like individual customers who come to us and like they have a Savage or they have a Remington, or are you talking about the companies in particular, like Savage actually buying product from us?
A person.
Okay.
Like if they're building a gun from scratch or if they're just trying to upgrade the stock.
About 70% of the entire market is Remington 700s or Remington 700 clones. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with what a clone means, but there's a lot of action makers that make the footprint of a Remington 700, and they do that because they want accessories like rifle stocks to fit their action because it helps them sell product. So there's probably I could probably rattle off a dozen different custom action makers that make Remington 700 clones. So the Remington 700 itself and the clones make up about 70% of the entire market. And then Savage and Tikka are pretty high, next in line. And then Howa and Ruger Americans are also up there. And then beyond that, you have maybe some Winchester Model 70s, some other models of Remington, Seikos, things like that. We're the type of company we're only, there's a number of really good custom stock companies. they are going to do the real custom stuff like Mausers and, Seiko 85s. Like, we don't do that. Like, probably the most will go Remington 700, Tikka T3s, Howa 1500s, which is also the Vanguard, Savage 110s and all the 110 variants, and Ruger Americans. Probably as far as we'll go. And then everything else is just a few percent of the entire market, at least the aftermarket. And we just let the custom stock makers deal with all those unique. We're just not built for that.
So I know, like, I have a Christensen Ridgeline. I don't know if you're familiar with them. That's a Remington 700 footprint, I believe. So, like, if I had one of those, and it's a 300 PRC, so it's kind of more. I bought it more like an elk gun kind of thing. So you would be more that high altitude. What would you recommend for like meat?
So it's a 300 PRC, so it's a pretty big kicker. And you're using it for elk. I'm just recapping what you said. You're using it for elk, so you probably relatively high altitude.
Yeah, so lightweight.
Yeah, and with elk, you can get relatively close. I mean, I would say, we've got 3 stocks that you could choose from in that cat. Well, there's really 4, but I'll go through them. So the Trekkers are most lightweight. It's got very little adjustability, but the whole goal with the Trekker is lightweight. That's kind of the same concept with our Eagle as well. The Eagle just shaped differently, so you have a different feel. So you got basically the Trekker and the Eagle, non-adjustable. I think the Trekker comes in at a couple ounces lighter. But overall, they just have a little bit different ergonomics. So those are 2 that are lightweight, non-adjustable. Now we have 2 more they're a little bit heavier and they're adjustable. So the Eagle Pro is our adjustable version, and that gives you some adjustment. But because of the adjustment, it adds a little bit of weight, maybe 6 ounces. And then the Phoenix is kind of our biggest hunting stock. I would probably take because last time I did an elk hunt, I was like at somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 feet. So it's not like you're at super high. We rode horses in, we walked a little bit. So it depends on what you're doing. But like if you're really trekking, like if you're walking up mountains and you're like, you need every single ounce you can get, I'd take a non-adjustable. But if you know that, you might only walk a few hundred yards and you might just glass for the elk, because you can do that too. You might choose an adjustable, one of the adjustables.
So I guess, and this is for me specifically, like I know more, I don't really need an adjustable one. Most just common rifle stocks, as far as the cheek weld fit my face pretty good. But I know, like, for this specific one, the length of pull is not the most comfortable on that rifle for me. So are all yours, can you adjust the length of pull on these ones?
Yeah, we have an adjustable length of pull system. So it's pretty simple. It's just spacers. They're all 1/4 inch, and then you can add and take them off. Our minimum length of pull is 12 1/4. And you can put as many spacers as you want out there, 1/4 inch spacers. So if you're a tall guy and you need 6 spacers, you can put 6 spacers. The only problem you might run into is your screw length. If you got a lot of spacers on there, you might have to get some custom screws, but it's no big deal. Pretty common screws, cheap. If we don't supply that length because you've got so many on, you can get them at a hardware store or something like that. They're pretty common. I think they're 1032s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do you have specific gun manufacturers that order your stocks and use them on their rifles, or is it you just 100% direct to consumer?
No, we do both. We actually do a variation of just about every type of business. And we're a newer-ish company, so we're still young in some of these areas, but we have an online web page that you can go to and just buy directly if you're a customer, if you're an individual who has a rifle and wants to upgrade their stock. You can, like, I go into Cabela's or Bass Pro on a regular basis. I was just in Missouri at the main Bass Pro, the original one. And there's always a few rifles that our stocks are on in there. Like we have stocks on Winchester, we have stocks on Bergaras and CVA, which is a muzzle loading company. And we do work for Springfield, a lot of stocks for Springfield. And we're working with two new companies right now to launch product in 2024, at least two companies. I'm not going to mention who they are yet because we haven't launched the product, but they'll come out here within the next few months. So we do that. We also we're starting this year to do some distribution. We have national sales reps who their job is to really get our product into gun stores across the nation. So that's kind of like the third tier. That's our last area of business to tackle, is that, anywhere from small mom and pop shops to your larger stores like Bass Pro. But from, right now, because we're in Bass Pro and Cabela's, because we're on like a bigger manufacturer's gun, right? We sell the stock to Winchester. Winchester sells it to Bass Pro. But there is opportunity for us to sell stocks also. So if you go into Bass Pro right now and you go look in the gun area, you'll see a few different stock manufacturers' stocks hanging on the shelf. Magpul's one of those that you'll see. And so that's an opportunity for us too as we go into this new distribution. So
my next question is if you were to recommend like a build, one, would you just buy a pre-built rifle to throw your stock on, or would you like custom build the whole thing, like pick out an action? I guess I was kind of curious, especially knowing your background, like what would you build?
I would pick out everything, but partly that's probably because I know the industry and I know the manufacturers of each component, and I know who's good and what I would do. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't understand the industry and all the players in each section, you may just want to buy a good off-the-shelf rifle until you learn a little bit more about why things are the way they are. So, the components of a rifle, first of all, the action, right? That's like the centerpiece. That's where the round goes boom, right? That's like where all the action happens. And so, there's probably a dozen or 2 dozen action makers out there that you could choose from. And if you don't know what you're looking at, you may get confused. And then next is your barrel, right? So there's a bunch of barrel makers out there, and they do different, they have different ways of making barrels, and they have different niches and that type of stuff. So again, if you don't know the barrel makers, you may not get what you want. And then the last part of the main body is the stock. And again, there's a number of stock makers, same story. And then you've got even stuff beyond that. You've got kind of your ancillary stuff, like you have to have a bottom metal, and if you want a bipod and all your little accessories. For me personally, I know how to get my hands on them. I know what the best product is, and I know what would fit me. But as just an individual who may be starting out in this industry, it might not be a bad idea to get a really nice gun right off the bat from a manufacturer, start to understand who the players are and how to put together a rifle. And then eventually, I think that one of the best ways to do it is to piece it together yourself. And I find that a lot of people who do that, they really enjoy that. Like they don't even now, take this with a grain of salt. Some people shoot all the time, but a lot of people just enjoy the process of building a gun. And maybe they shoot the gun once or twice a year. But the process of building a gun and buying all the components and getting it built, it's fun for a lot of people.
So you mentioned accessories. I know on your website you can add a little like Picatinny rail to the bottom for like a bipod or a tripod. Do you have any plans, I guess, going forward to maybe like introduce an ARCA rail, or maybe you already have one?
Yeah, we don't make an ARCA, but we do offer one. The manufacturer, it's right on the tip of my tongue. We deal with them all the time. I don't know why I can't think of it. Anyway, but we offer an ARCA. So it's like an upgrade. If you go through our website and you're clicking through the selections, actually it comes up Sawtooth. It comes up as a selection. But ultimately, like, just to expand on that comment a little bit, the way we make our stocks is different than anybody else in the composite world or the fiberglass world or the carbon fiber world. And it will allow us eventually to build in all of those features without having a bolt-on aluminum piece, let's say. So we're working towards that. We'll actually start to introduce some of that concept here this year and a couple of the new products that we're launching. And so this year will be exciting because you're going to see a lot out of us doing things that no other composite rifle stock manufacturer has ever done. So this is going to be an interesting year for us. And I think people are going to go, whoa, I've only seen that before in chassis. And they're going to go, composite stock maker can do that? So that's going to be really exciting. And, like kind of how that ties in is like ARCA Rails, typically, especially for composite stock, you have to buy them and bolt them on. But our goal is to build in. And when I say build in, it's like it's part of the stock. We mold the stock. It will be part of the stock. It won't be an extra add-on. So that's exciting for us.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. I know, because even like that gun I was talking about earlier, even just to put a little Picatinny rail, it's only got the one sling swivel stud. It doesn't, like, I know a lot of companies have started doing two, but it only has one. So to even just put a little Picatinny rail to mount like my Atlas bipod onto it, you had to drill through the stock, which wasn't very comfortable doing, and it was just kind of a pain. So
yeah, modern stock makers, most modern stock makers will have a stock that has a decent amount of bells and whistles on it. And what I mean by that is you can attach lots of stuff. So if you look at our Phoenix, it has a whole M-LOK rail on the bottom. So it gives you all kinds of different options, right? Like you can mount anything you want on an M-LOK. Bipods, we have a built-in QD mount there. You can mount studs, anything that can mount to an M-LOK rail, which is basically everything nowadays you can put on there. So, like we do have some stocks that are bare minimum. That's what people like, one stud in the front, one stud in the back, gives you little options. But what we want to do, and I think what most stock makers do, is they give people options. The option with the Picatinny rail on the bottom, like it's going to be a more expensive option. The stock with the fewer options on it, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. And so it comes down to your budget. It comes down to what you like. A lot of older generation guys like a more traditional stock. That's just what they grew up with. That's what they like. And so that's, a standard looking stock like our Outlander with two studs. And that's it. So we try to, we do our best to accommodate as many of those types, many types of people as we can.
So, and then kind of to go with that, not a whole lot, could you maybe help me understand? Okay, so I was going through and kind of piecing stuff together on the website. Because you have like the metal floor plate, and I know, like, for example, that Ridgeline has one on the stock it has now. Would that mean I would have to get one if I was to order one through you, or can you change that, or how exactly does that work?
So this is a really insightful question, and it's something that as a stock company we deal with on a regular basis, and it's a challenge for customers because they don't understand that either. Nobody understands that except us because we deal with it every single day. First and foremost, our terminology in this industry sucks. So we call that piece of bottom metal. Even if it's plastic, that's what we call it. It's like we have bad terminology. We have complex things that most customers have no idea. We only mostly know it internally. We have to relay this information somehow on our website. Customers get confused by it because the inlet on the bottom where you stick that bottom metal or that BDL can vary. It does vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some fit, some don't. And so we have to know what fits with our stocks. And if a customer, for instance, doesn't have something that came from the factory that fits our profile, they have to buy one of ours, our bottom metals, put in there that'll fit. So your question, like a Ridgeline, I do believe the Ridgeline bottom metal, which I think is a BDL style, does fit a BDL, which the terminology that I'm already saying, you probably don't even know what this is, and neither do customers. I just say it because I have to have something to relay this information to you, but I do believe we have a solution. I know we have a solution for that. But even if we don't, let's say you had a rifle that didn't have a bottom metal that fit our stock, we have options for that, but you have to spend more money to buy a bottom metal that fits in our stock. And that's not just us. That's basically every stock company. every aftermarket stock company has to deal with this, and it's challenging. And for us, we really have tried hard in our history to eliminate these type of issues where the customers can get confused. Even we get confused, because when I say we get confused, like internally, when we're trying to write orders and product is going through the process, and if there's an opportunity for us to make a mistake, it can happen, especially we're pushing thousands of stocks through our process on a regular basis. So we try to simplify as much as we can. So what you're going to see is the traditional bottom metal that you're talking about. We're going to be working on building that into the stock, so there's no more question on whether this is going to fit or that's going to fit, because that just gets tedious for everyone.
So for now, just buy a gun with an external magazine.
Yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer. To answer your question, yes. Yeah, let's say you were ordering a stock from us. You call us up. You'd say, "Hey, I got a Christensen Ridgeline. This is what I got." We would know, hey, that fits or that doesn't. You can use it. If you can use it, great. We'll send you a stock. You can use it. If it doesn't, we will tell you if it doesn't, and you can have the option to purchase one of ours.
So then with the detachable ones, do they pretty much fit all the time, the magazine that they originally had, if you were just upgrading a stock?
So that's another piece. Like rifle manufacturers have their own magazines. Oftentimes, almost all manufacturers have their own magazines. If they have a DBM system, by the way, DBM, like what's that word mean? Nobody knows. We do, but nobody else does. So detachable box magazine. If you have a detachable box magazine, the manufacturers have historically made their own. So it's really complicated to try to explain on a podcast, but there is a certain type of magazine that traditionally the industry is going to. It's called AICS. But most rifle manufacturers aren't making AICS mags. They make their own. So what happens when someone calls us, goes, well, I want this, I have a Ridgeline. Okay. And then we have to ask, do you want magazine fed or do you want floor plate? And we have to explain sometimes what that is, what a magazine is, what a floor plate is, and then they'll explain to us, and then we can put them in the right solution. But yeah, I mean, it's a confusing process, like I can imagine a customer gets a rifle, let's say from Savage, and they have this magazine and bottom metal, they want to change out their stock, and they don't know what fits with what. Like, they just don't know. So we have it, and oftentimes it's just a one-off situation where, not a one-off, but like when we talk to the customer, we have to know. We have to know what Savage is doing. We have to know all the models of Savage. We have to know all the models of, Remington 700, all the unique ones. We have to know all the clones. We have to know all the Howitt 1500s. We have to know all the Rugers. Like, we have to know all that, and what bottom metal they come with, what magazines they come with, and how to get a person into an aftermarket stock if the factory stuff doesn't work.
So you can, though, say you have a floor plate on yours now, you can change over to a detachable magazine?
Yes.
Okay, that I didn't know that. I figured you would be stuck with. I guess I always called it an internal magazine. That sounds like the wrong term.
No, I mean, when you say that, I totally understand what you mean. But the problem is terminology. Nobody uses the same words, and they're not intuitive. So, but yeah, you're right. Yes, you can change. You can change. Like if you have the old school ADLs that don't even have basically single shots, right? You can change. You just need to have the right pieces. You need to buy the right pieces. So you get first is the stock, and then you have to have a stock that's compatible with, let's say you want to go from a single shot to a magazine fed. You can do that. You just have to have the right pieces, the stock and the bottom metal and the magazines that all fit and work together.
So with that, do you have to this is more of like a legal question, like the states that don't allow like high capacity mags or more than like a few rounds, like New York or California, do you have any weird implications to sell your product in those types of states?
I don't think we do. Like, I think the 10-round mag. So let me say this. I have a whole sales team, and they may have a few states that they can't sell the 10-round mags to. I don't know off the top of my head if it's like above 10 rounds or below 10 rounds. It's not a problem for us, because if people can't buy a 10-round mag, let's say in New Jersey or something, they just buy a 5. It's not a huge deal for us. So it's not something that, like, for me, like, I don't know the details of that. But I can tell you this, since I don't know the details of that, it's not that big of a deal from our standpoint. We don't have customers complaining that much. Like, we offer 10, 5, and 3-round mags in just about every caliber, every option. So a customer has an option. If his state doesn't let him run a 10-round mag, he buys a 5. It's kind of what it is. They're not, customers aren't complaining to us because we have nothing to do with it. So
right. That makes sense. So do you guys have any plans to go to SHOT Show or anything?
Yeah, we'll be at SHOT Show.
I was just going to ask about if you had any products on the horizon, but you said you were going to get more into competition stock. So what would be the main components, I guess, that would differentiate between your hunting stock and what you guys are trying to get out of a competition stock?
Well, first of all, weight. Like every hunting stock, even if we have some that are heavier than others, we try to make as light as possible. In the tactical stocks, we're actually trying to make them as heavy as possible. So that's probably that's one of the major differentiators. The other differentiator is, it's your ability to put stuff on the stock, right? Like in competition, it's very much more likely that the shooters are going to have all kinds of bells and whistles all over their product, all over the stock. So the more options for attachments you can give, the better. But that drives the price up, and the stock price up. So our competition stocks are typically much more expensive than our hunting stocks. Hunting stocks tend to be more simple, while tactical and competition stocks tend to be more complex and therefore more expensive. And customers typically understand that. Like, they don't complain too much. And it's not because of any other reason than when we have to design and make the molds for, and then the production of a more complex stock takes more time, and it's just more complex, and so it just drives the cost up a little bit. So really, that's really what it comes down to, is weight and features.
So you did say you're going to SHOT Show. Are these new stocks you talked about earlier? Will those be released there, or are you waiting for later in the year?
No, we won't have them ready. I think the first planned launch for what we call the Renegade 2 is sometime, I think it's like end of April, beginning of May. I have to look at our schedule, but we'll launch that. And then I think September 10th we're launching another one. And then I think December 15th or something like that, we'll launch the last one. So they'll be launched throughout the year, but SHOT Show is only a week and a half away or so, or a week away. So probably won't. We won't take them. We don't even have them, so they won't be there.
Pretty much ran through our questions. I appreciate you giving us insight and for taking the time out of your evening to be on here. We really appreciate it and enjoy talking to folks like you and kind of get insight into their niches and things like that. So
yeah, I definitely learned a lot. It was great.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely. You too.